Hey you guys, happy Wednesday. Welcome to Q&A Wednesday. So today I'm going to talk about having a second shooter and second shooting. Somebody asked me recently to talk about this for Q&A Wednesday, and I thought this was a really good idea because I think that if you haven't really done a lot of second shooting or hired a lot of second shooters, it's kind of an unknown thing how it goes down. And a lot of I get asked a lot, do I need to have a second shooter? So I think it's definitely worth chatting about. I use a second shooter probably 40% of my weddings. Maybe half. I don't know. I should actually go back and count that up. That would be interesting for me to figure out exactly how many weddings I do use. But it seems like maybe about half. Definitely if the wedding is bigger, I use second shooters. I really love smaller weddings, and I'm really gravitating a lot more towards smaller weddings, and so that is why I don't use second shooters more. So I'm going to go over just a little list of pros and cons for second shooters. Pro, the obvious thing, you get more images, you get more coverage. So if you want to do the getting ready photos, a lot of times I will stick with the bride and the ladies. And the second shooter will go with the groom. And that way we can split it up and I don't have to be running back and forth, and I just can trust and know that that stuff is being covered. It just kind of gives you you're going to get a lot more coverage, and it just gives you a little bit of breathing room. Definitely for this ceremony, it's really nice to have a second shooter. You can get multiple angles. And you don't have to be walking around as much. For me personally, during a ceremony, I like to be as discreet as possible. And so I really like that I have another person there so that we can just be discreetly covering the angles without having to do a ton of walking around and stuff. So definitely more coverage. I think also it's nice with a second shooter that you can, I feel like I have a little bit more room to like play around with stuff. So if I'm wanting to try something out, I can put my second shooter in charge of getting the need to get shots. So if there's like a cocktail hour going on, I'm like, you go and get that. I'm going to go play around with the bride and groom a little bit, and we're going to do some fun stuff. Whereas I might feel like I might need to have a little bit more of a time limit on the bride and groom portrait so that I can make sure to be getting everything else. So it definitely can be really helpful. And one last little pro of a second shooter is you get some images of you doing your work, which I have some of me that I didn't even know my second shooters were taking that I really love, because this is something we do all the time and we don't see ourselves doing it. You can, get another photographer to come and take pictures of you like posing, but you in the field doing what you're doing it's really valuable. I have actually looked back and really loved to see those photos that second shooters have gotten of me doing my thing. And also have gotten to see like my photography face where I'm like making weird faces when I'm, that's kind of fun. Okay, cons of a second shooter. I get distracted by people. So I hire one person particularly whenever she's available for second shooting. Her name is Lauren. Shout out to Lauren. She's an amazing photographer, wedding photographer. So if ever she's available, she's always my first choice, because our styles really complement each other. She's really amazing at candid and really amazing at capturing candid moments. And I really love to do like portraiture. And so us together, we make a pretty kick-ass team. So I love to hire her whenever possible. However, the downfall is, I love Lauren and we are friends and we have a lot to talk about. So when I'm at work and I have like a good friend of mine there, I can get distracted. I can get, instead of being in my zone, knowing my timeline, knowing my goals, knowing my, like really in my zone, I can get really distracted. So that is something. And that's not just with Lauren. Like that happens with me a lot with second shooters. I get really distracted chatting with them. And I still do the work is still fine. It's not like it makes the work worse. It's just a little harder for me. Another con is that for me, I see a wedding as like a full art piece from beginning to end. The moment I get there and I'm scouting locations to the moment I give hugs and leave, that's an entire beginning to end art piece. And when I display it to them at the very end, it's this beautiful organically moving art piece of like how the whole day went from beginning to end. It's consistent. It's telling the story. And when you invite other people's work into that, imagine if you're writing a novel and you're having someone else write a couple chapters. It can add a little bit of disjointedness to it. I have found second shooters that really are similar to my style. Like I said, Lauren and my style is really similar. So we don't get that disjointedness as much, but there can be some disjointedness when you ask somebody to come in and add to your art piece. So that's the biggest con for me. I do like shooting weddings by myself, to be honest, but I do hire second shooters, like I said, half the time when I feel like it's going to benefit the wedding. So that's my answer to that. And a couple other quick things. If you are going to hire a second photographer or be hired, make sure you're paying them well. If you're going to be hired as a second photographer, make sure that you know the rules and the needs of that photographer. Some photographers don't want you to share any of the images. Some other photographers don't care as much. Like, just make sure you know what they want beforehand and make it very clear so there's no awkwardness. Definitely if you're a second shooter, like, never contact the couple, because that's like the other photographer's thing. That's like a big no in second shooting. And yeah, second shooting is a really amazing way to get experience. I never second shot, actually. I just dived into weddings, and then once I started, it was like 3 years into weddings that I actually just second shot for a friend, and I was like, this is really fun, and I'm learning a lot, and it's fun not to be the main one. So if you're starting out in weddings, definitely second shoot. And no matter where you are, there's usually like a Facebook group. I know there was one in Portland called like Second Shooters, where people are always looking for second shooters. So that is a really great place. Look for resources like that. And yeah, this Q&A is way too long. So happy Wednesday, guys.